Say hello.
Hi.
Why am I not surprised?
Libertarians.
I'm definitely a very don't tell me what to do kind of guy. Thomas Daniel Queter, never quitter, rarely quieter. You might have noticed.
Tom Queter, good to see you.
You as well, Mike.
Thanks for doing this. Thanks for having me into your home. We are in Mount Upton, New York.
Not a town, it's a hamlet.
It is a hamlet, and we are, by certain standards, in the middle of nowhere.
Yep, it is dead. If you hold up your hand like this and look at it, you know, up here would be Canada, and over here would be Buffalo, and this is New York City. We're right here.
Yeah, that's well said. We're not really that close to anything. It took an hour and a half to drive here from Syracuse, and I think I was on a dozen different roads.
Yep.
So, and your address, I don't want to give away the road because I don't want all kinds of weird people following you. But your address is 1789. Are you a constitutionalist, would you say?
I appreciate the original Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
I don't appreciate
the 1789 version.
Anything that's not overly bastardized.
I appreciate that. Now, this house, which is lovely, by the way, as is the area and your immediate surroundings. Tell me, this house you have been in for your entire life.
My parents bought it when I was born because there was a sidewalk nearby, and they lived up on the hill. They were farm hands for room and board and had other jobs.
Uh-huh.
And they paid $16,000 for this with the original acreage, horse barn, and dairy barn, and it was almost worth that much.
Wow.
Yeah, there was no insulation. Actually, we all slept in this room in the coldest nights of winter because that square in the floor would be the hole of where the wood furnace was in the basement.
Yep.
And on top of that, we'd have a kerosene heater to stay warm enough. Waking up with ice on your water glass on the end table was not uncommon. I remember, so you sleep with a lot of blankets in that kind of a situation, right?
Right.
And it was a working barn with another working barn nearby.
Yep.
And rats exist.
Rats do exist.
One night I woke up with a litter of half-grown rats in my blankets.
Oh,
and Lord! Right, I'm a farm kid. I'm not really squeamish about rats, but when you wake up to that and it's squirming...
No, that would be disconcerting for anyone.
Right. So I screamed as a kid did, or would, right? And my father, startled awake upstairs, came down in a stupor because he worked hard all day long.
Sure.
And, waking up at 2 a.m. to his kids screaming about rats. And he tried to make my BB gun work so he could shoot it, but he couldn't get because he was, out of it. He actually beat the rats to death with my BB gun and broke it.
That's what we refer to as resourceful. And that is taking advantage of your 2A rights, being able to use a weapon any way you choose.
Oh, absolutely. I like an AR-15 because you can get it down to 6 pounds and I can fire it.
There you go.
Ultimately, what I would really want is a Thompson Encore with the exchangeable barrel.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I appreciate that. Now, living out here, you probably don't have too much need for complete weaponization. And it's a good thing because you live in New York State. New York State has strong opinions on your 2A rights.
Yeah, so we actually do have a need for our 2A rights here, quite so.
Yeah.
While the population, and therefore the population and police, is spread more thin,
Yep.
How you're treated by the police depends on what your last name is.
Very interesting.
And how you look.
And if your last name is Queter?
If your last name is Queter, they stay away from you. Although I was actually arrested twice for things I didn't do before the age of 13.
Really?
Yeah, arson of an old school building, which did not do.
Yep.
And I got called a mastermind criminal for organizing a theft ring.
Okay, well, you are a mastermind criminal. That part, I find wholly credible. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
The interesting part of that was that the perpetrators were actually the children of a cop from New York City who moved them up here. He moved them up here because they were trouble. And he had his job down there.
And were you doing a Svengali manipulation of their behavior?
Apparently they were doing that of me. I did go in that school building. A friend of mine and I had run away from home, just like little kids.
Yep.
We weren't even like going to run away.
Yeah.
Our concept was let's make them worry and kind of make them
You made it as far as the schoolhouse.
They made us mad, and so we were going to make them mad. And
I get it.
Our original plan, we had a coffee can, we had a package of hot dogs for country kids. We knew how to have a coffee can fire and cook a hot dog.
Yeah.
We were going to do that behind the school building where there was a world.
That's well prepared by kid standards.
Yeah. But of course, we also had our backpacks with our stuff, school notebooks with our names on it.
This is fairly serious.
Yes. So we get to the playground. Lightning hits the playground. Not far from us.
Wow.
Right? And
a fire was started.
No.
No.
But we are country kids, and we understand what happens when lead acid batteries explode.
Yes.
That's what I was sitting on, basically. So my friend went through the open window and removed wire from the door, and I went up the ramp that was built for me to go into that building originally.
Yep.
The building was abandoned then, and to get away from the store. So my big brother, being big brother, 5 years older, he figured out where we were. Small town, everybody saw us, everybody knew where we were.
Yeah, I'm guessing
about this, right?
Yeah, no amount of sneakiness is going to escape that.
So he's banging on windows and doors all the way around the school and hollering. And of course, we're the little kids. We're scared. I mean, we're scared.
How old were you at this time?
I was 11.
Yeah.
And my friend was a little younger. So, big brother, finds us, scares us, sends us home blatting like little kids, as you should.
Yeah.
That's the proper thing. That's what should happen.
Yes, I think so.
Yes. And 3 months later, these other kids start a fire with our stuff that has our names on it.
Oh, I love it.
And the cops come around, they're talking to people.
This is the beginning of a bad sitcom.
Yeah, that's most of my life. So, dust builds up over time.
Yeah.
I left tracks in the dust, the gymnasium. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure if the cop lied to me or if it was the caretaker that lied.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was told that the caretaker said he cleaned that every 2 weeks. Now 3 months had gone by, and my tracks were still there.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody.
Yeah, somebody
lied.
Somebody lied about something.
Yeah, and I got 6 months probation, juvenile probation. I had to go to court, and I told the judge and the court everything.
Were you incarcerated at any point?
No, but that's why they wanted me, because then they don't have to bother the children of the police officer, and now we've got somebody they can just slap on the wrist.
Absolutely, you're a better scapegoat.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the probation, I had to see a counselor, I don't know, every couple of weeks or something.
Right.
And gave the counselor the same spiel I gave the court.
No.
The counselor looks us dead in the eyes. You shouldn't be here. We don't have to go through counseling. Just come in and sign your name. And that's what we did.
Okay, excellent. And the counselor was able to build the county, so yeah, everything worked out for the best.
You've seen the size of the town. It's not very big, right? Your choice of friends is very limited.
Yes, I can imagine. You've got those who will be, willing to burn down the schoolhouse, and those who aren't.
Right. Well, you have more of those who are.
Okay.
But I ended up staying friends with the same kids because they were close.
Oh, you have to.
Away.
You have to in a town like this.
And they stole some stuff from a school bus that's not accessible. It was parked in a field that I couldn't get through.
Yeah. The non-accessibility is about to become an important element of the story.
Yes.
Yep.
And they gave me some.
Trafficking in stolen goods.
Right. And this is where I'm the mastermind criminal. I decided that all the best stuff should be stored in a treehouse.
Huh. And how did you come up with that
I
idea?
have no idea.
Very creative, Tom.
Must be I just climbed up there.
Must be.
Uh,
Very creative.
Right? The stories that get told about me sometimes are rather hilarious.
Yeah.
Because I'm a cannabis patient, at one point, I think I was like 22 or something.
Yeah.
One of my parents' friends came knocking on the door and all upset about how everybody's talking about how I run a meth lab in the basement.
Really?
The basement.
Yes.
The basement.
You know, I hear you. I hear you loud and clear.
Apparently, the meth I make is so good that I can throw myself down those stairs, break my bones,
Climb
make a
out.
batch, climb back, and do it over and over.
And do it again tomorrow.
But public
I
perception,
love that.
people really think that meth is like that.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love that. Hold that thought. I'm going to push an extra button.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, outside of criminal activity, my childhood and growing up was gardening. And we had lunch in the garden as we worked in the garden. Pick a cucumber and eat it.
Yeah. Now, you were kind enough to show me the garden earlier. It's quite extensive.
That's small.
That's small.
It used to be 3 times that size.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In what direction? It went straight back from the house even further?
Well, you saw the horse barn?
Yeah?
That whole area behind it.
Yep.
And the house next door is my brother, behind his house.
Yep.
And where we went up that little hill, and there's that strip that used to be railroad tracks, actually.
Oh.
That as
I
well.
wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah.
Okay. So this house was relatively self-sustaining in some ways.
Especially in regards to food.
Exactly. Exactly.
So the way my parents fixed this house up was twofold. While my father did have jobs, they were like milking cows at a farm nearby, or
Yep.
for a few years he managed a farm.
Yep.
Outside of those, well, he did work for the tool company, and he worked for a lumber mill at one point, but he was predominantly a stay-at-home dad.
Yep.
And I give him all the credit in the world for that, because that's not his mentality.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
He had to put himself aside to do what was necessary.
Right.
When it came down to his health insurance, my mother was the one.
Given your special needs.
Yes.
Yes.
Given my needs.
Okay.
Special needs is actually becoming a less okay term.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. People who grow up with it dislike it.
I apologize.
Oh, no, I'm just informing you.
Yep.
There's actually a movement against it, and everybody's trying to argue about what they should be called in the disability world, and it's insanity. I don't know if you noticed, Mike, but hi, I'm Tom.
I appreciate that.
We all have the same needs. It just might take different things to accomplish that.
Yep.
So, differently abled, disabled, wheelchair bound, special. None of those things apply to me. My name is Tom.
Perfect. And perfectly well said. Thanks for that. So, Tom, tell me how it is that you became to recognize yourself as a libertarian.
Well, first of all, we got to go back to high school. It was the Bush versus Gore year, and
Quite an event.
quite a debacle. And you're in school and they do the mock vote, and in history classes involved, and they're pushing you to choose one or the other.
Yep.
One or the other. I'm like, it's Bush versus Gore. Do I want a cokehead or a jerk that lies all the time? And I wasn't going to choose either one.
Right.
So I just chose to register as an independent.
Okay.
And my history grade suffered that year because I would not choose one of the two main parties.
Very interesting. And you were like, a junior in high school or
Yeah,
so?
that would have been 11th grade for me.
Yep.
And we go back a little farther to 5th grade. Mr. Mason, he was big on actual history.
Yeah.
And I was a library kid. And we had an old school with old books. And so you can learn a lot of actual history, and not just these textbooks that are manufactured.
Yeah.
So I did learn appreciation for the Constitution in 5th grade.
Yep.
Severe appreciation.
Yep.
And I did in later years, particularly in my junior year, learn how bastardized it's become in our politics.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear conservatives railing about the Constitution, and I remember going to BLM rallies and hearing them talking more and more accurately about the Constitution than Trump ever did or any conservative ever did.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Not that I necessarily appreciate that movement. I was there to turn young socialists into libertarians, and I had success.
Very interesting. Now, you have characterized yourself as autodidactic in the past. I've heard you say that.
It's because that's what I'm told.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. I learn anything I put my hands on.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. You've been a member of the Libertarian Party for some time. Not since high school.
5 years this year.
What did you consider yourself between high school and 5 years ago? An independent?
Independent, definitely independent, registered,
Yep.
and apolitical.
Yeah.
I actually considered politics to be useless.
What changed that? What made you, and maybe you still feel that way, but what made you feel like you wanted to get a little bit involved and join the Libertarian Party? And by the way, thank you for doing so.
It started with Gary Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He got some press. My dad was a little bit of a news hound.
Yep.
And he made sense.
Yep.
Later, I would learn about Ron Paul and feel a lot the same way about him.
Yeah.
But I think the thing about Gary was he never tried to hide that he was a human being.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of politicians do this.
We all appreciated that about Gary. Yeah.
That's the thing. You gotta be honest and genuine. That's it.
Yeah. And it worked well with him being a former governor.
Yes.
You know, he brought a little bit of credibility policy-wise, and that allowed him to loosen up, I suppose. So, all good. You have run for office more than once.
3 times.
Beginning in 18?
20.
Beginning in 20.
Yep.
Tell me about 20 to begin with.
So I stumbled into that. I registered at the Larry Stark event.
Yep.
As a libertarian. And the secretary of the party then for New York walked up to me and asked me if I would want to form the county committee for Shenango.
Yep.
Apparently they had somebody that had been trying for 2 years.
Okay.
And that guy showed up, and so I kind of had like the out, right? I had just gotten a crowdfunded wheelchair, just exited 5 years of being trapped in that apartment that I showed you.
Yes.
And I wasn't really too sure on what I was even able to do.
Yeah. It makes sense.
So a few months go by from that, and the guy who was still trying his best, had a personal issue that made him have to change directions.
Okay.
And so he come over and he asked me. And by then I have figured out the new wheelchair and gotten it customized, and then
He asked you to run for office?
No, he asked me to start the county chapter.
Nice.
So where someone else failed for 2 years, I actually got enough people in one room right down the road within 8 weeks, formulated the bylaws, tweaked the boilerplate we were given to be more libertarian.
Yep.
And
Gotta do it.
Yeah, and got it done.
Yeah.
And at that point, we had...
How many folks did you have to recruit?
We had all 7 libertarians in the county. And then 8 weeks later, we had somewhere around 80-something.
Nicely done. And how did you do that?
Online, social media, barely left my house.
Yeah.
Messaging, talking to people. Of course,
Yep.
as we discussed, my last name is a little well known around here. We're good people, hardworking people.
Yep.
Maybe some of us cause some trouble sometimes, but for the most part, my brother built up a contractor business from nothing.
Yeah.
My father...
In this county?
Right next door.
Right next door. So when you called, people would take your call, people would recognize your name on social media, It carried a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
It's important, it matters. Good for you for leveraging that.
Wasn't even trying, I was just messaging.
Yep.
But I later kind of figured out that
Yep.
people trust me because of where I come from and who I am.
Yep. Good for you. So you got the county up.
And then I'm involved with the surrounding county committees.
Yep.
And there's a Senate race going that's uncontested by a Republican that nobody likes. He refused to stand up for your gun rights. He was pro-vaccine since before COVID. He was in favor of forcing the measles vaccine for a strain of measles that really doesn't affect us.
Wow. He was all ready for the COVID.
Yes.
Pre-planning.
What he liked to ride around in Cuomo's limo a lot.
I see. And this is a Republican.
Yes. Fred Akshaw.
Yes.
I'm not afraid
I've seen
to say
Fred's
his name.
name.
Yeah.
I've seen Fred's name.
He is now a sheriff in Broome County. In the 2020, he wanted to make it illegal to be within 25 feet of an officer making an arrest.
Really? That's quite a buffer.
Have you driven through Broome yet?
No, I don't think I have.
You've driven through Syracuse, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so if you're on the streets of Syracuse and an officer is making an arrest, how likely is it that people are going to be within 25 feet?
It's, of course, it's a densely populated area.
So it's almost like if there's somebody they want to arrest, if they can't actually do due diligence to do so.
You're right. All they need is for you to be within 25 feet.
Correct.
That's very interesting.
And in certain neighborhoods, there are more of those people that they want.
Yeah, no, I get that. I hear you loud and clear. So tell me about 2020.
Oh, all right. So
Let me, I have to check on my camera.
well, modern technology, right? It's supposed to make everything easy. So it started out with a handful of counties around me, basically everything in District 52.
Yep.
Looking for a candidate to go up against this guy that the Democrats liked so much they weren't putting somebody up against him.
Right. Did a Democrat come in?
No. There was rumors of a write-in or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Political scare tactics.
Yeah, I get it.
And
At this point, Fred
uncontested.
Had been uncontested.
And he's...
How many times had he been elected already?
A
couple times?
3, 4.
Ah, interesting.
Severe incumbent.
So at this point, he's the man.
Yep.
I get it.
And so we were a handful of us just trying to find somebody to run against.
Yeah.
And it was approaching that deadline. And of course, the people who became my party-based mentors, the people who would call me an autodidact or a natural libertarian, because I don't study philosophy. I've never studied a philosopher.
Right.
I've read quotes, and I've learned vicariously, if you will.
Yep.
But I don't need to worship a dead person to be a libertarian.
I appreciate that, and you're right about that, in my view. Mm-hmm.
They had been asking me for months through this period, and I forget what it was that Fred did, but I saw it and I was like, nobody else is going to do it. Least I can do is put my name on a piece of paper.
Yep.
And leverage my social media.
Yep.
And do some messaging. That was my plan when I jumped into the race.
I understand. You ended up doing more than that.
Yes. Well, 2020 was a lack of opportunity for many people. It was a gain of opportunity for me because these situations are all on how you look at them.
Yeah.
When everybody else was afraid to go out, well, I've already been handling my own respiratory illness situation.
Right.
I've turned blue from the common cold. I've been in the hospital for pneumonia.
Right. So you're a guy who's not easily intimidated at this point.
And I learned how to treat myself. I stay away from doctors. Not you should see a doctor. But I put a lot of work into solving the problems that the healthcare system couldn't or wouldn't.
I get it.
And most of it's diet, by the way. You can be a lot healthier just by eating properly.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me making a statement,
please.
Treat your diet like your sex life. If you don't know what it is, don't put it inside of you. And it's a fact.
No, I hear you. No argument for me. In both realms, that is damn good advice. Damn good advice.
So,
I actually ended up organizing, petitioning for 3 other candidates, 4 of us.
Nice. All running for State House?
2 of us were running for State House, 1 Assembly, and 1 Congressional.
Okay. But all as libertarians.
Yes,
Yep.
of course.
Of course.
I don't sell out.
That will-
Other people might sell out. Hi, Colorado. But I will not.
Okay. Good for you.
I'm okay with one of the
And
other.
I hope you don't think that I was trying to imply that you might. I didn't mean that.
Oh, absolutely not.
No.
No, but we're here to talk to people, right?
That's exactly right.
So, I'm okay with a Republican or a Democrat becoming a Libertarian, but if you look at the state of the party and the state of politics, I am not okay with a Libertarian becoming a Democrat or a Republican, and I'm certainly not okay with endorsing a Democrat or a Republican, and actually I'm a significant reason as to why Claudia Tenney did not get the Libertarian line. She had a plant in the Broome County chair. Broome County just keeps coming up.
It does come up
Yeah.
and it goes down.
And, okay, a lot of people like to think that libertarians don't like rules or laws, but here's the reality of it. We like to choose our own rules.
Yeah, that's well said.
And we had
That
rules.
is well said.
We had rules in the party that we had chosen.
Right.
And
When we say you need to think outside the box, what we mean is get out of your box and get into our box.
right? Or all the boxes. I'm okay with that. Well, I mean, Germany's a good example. We conquered Germany during the World Wars, and now they have 6 nationally known parties, and yet we only have 2.
That's a problem for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a problem for all of the independents, which make up about 75% if you can include third parties that don't get ballot access.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So, then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And I actually caught it early. I think it was early February. It was a pro-gun.
February of 2020?
Yes.
Wow, you got it really early.
As did everybody who showed up to the. I don't want to call it a gun rally, but it was a gathering where we discussed our gun rights in Norwich.
Yep.
And it seemed like everybody got sick there.
Huh. How did it go?
For me,
Yeah.
almost killed me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
COVID has almost killed me twice, and a handful of other times it was mild. Now I don't even. If I feel under the weather, could be cold, could be flu, could be COVID. I don't know.
Well, it's a different beast at this point.
Yes. Well,
And you have natural immunity. So.
natural immunity. I'm a type O. That's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
You are less susceptible to viral infection of any kind if you're type O.
Mm-hmm.
You need to treat your diet like a sex slave.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you need to eat things that are healthy. I like to tell people to eat things that hurt. So, raw ginger, raw garlic, hot peppers. Those are regular things in my diet for a couple of reasons. One, they're all anti-inflammatory.
Yep.
Ginger is actually a painkiller.
Yep. Interesting.
And,
How many of these things are grown in the backyard?
well, I have to buy the ginger.
You gotta buy the ginger.
But I've got 300 plus head of garlic down this year.
I saw the garlic back there.
Yep.
I was very impressed.
I grow enough to give it away.
Yep.
And I've still got garlic from last year. We're going to eat some in a bit.
Nice.
Actually, we're going to eat a lot of it in a bit.
I wasn't going to bring it up because I'm afraid we're going to make our audience jealous that you and I are about to have lunch together at this very table.
Actually, home-raised pork.
Nice.
And a stir fry, the garlic, and the hosta shoots. A lot of people don't realize you can eat hosta. It's a Japanese delicacy and it's delicious.
Mm-hmm. And grown in the backyard.
Yes.
Yes. And we are not in Japan.
No.
No. So it's a New York State delicacy.
I found it very interesting that even around here, everybody was terrified of the food shortage. And I'm like, go outside. It's almost all edible.
Right.
Just stay away
But
from the
people don't
belladonna.
know what to eat and what not to eat.
That's
And
a loss
we've
of-
gotten so far away from our food sourcing that people are just at a loss.
And that is one of many reasons why I'm very grateful for having grown up poor. And when I say poor, I mean dirt poor.
Yeah, I get that.
I fix things. I have picked things up off the side of the road. I mean, you saw some of my furniture. Some of that came from the side of the road.
Yeah.
A lot of my cast iron pans were rusted and people were going to throw them away, but you can fix them.
Well, and you have a different attitude about items, assets, the world.
And budgeting.
Yes.
When you don't have money,
Yeah.
you really don't like to spend it.
Yeah. No, I totally get that.
Well, I mean, I went grocery shopping with my mom as a kid. She was the one that taught me, look at the orange numbers, the per unit numbers.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
I mean, she would look at the price on a loaf of bread and then count the slices because she was factoring how many sandwiches she could make.
That girl. God, I love that. I would be remiss if I didn't flag the beloved irony in our friend Lars Mapstead, who grew up poor and is not poor today.
Correct.
But has some of that real robust ethic that you develop growing up without resources, and I love that about him.
There are a few presidential candidates since I've been in the party that I could say I completely hate. There's one this year, but we're not going to talk about it.
We don't have to talk about that. No, we only talk about the ones that we really love.
Yeah, so starting the county, growing the county,
Yep.
running for Senate. At the same time, I actually became a volunteer for Dan Berman, who says hi, by the way. I was talking to him just a few minutes before.
I'm a bit of a Dan Berman fan myself.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's the real deal.
And
say what you will about Dan, no one's accusing that guy of not being the real deal. He is living Dan.
Yes.
He lives Dan.
And he is probably one of the most gentle, kind-hearted souls you'll ever met.
He is a sweet guy. There's no question about that.
He has helped me out immensely.
Wonderful.
He trained me for a lot of things by working on his campaign.
Yeah.
Just like I said earlier, I went to the BLM rallies around here, which was kind of a joke. All the old white ladies who were around in the 60s just came out and said, let's do this again. and then of course in New York, it was like the only legal reason to gather in public, right?
Right.
So then everybody
Right. It's very interesting how certain authorities are willing to look the other way for that and only that.
So it seemed like most of this party was terrified of them. Terrified of showing up.
Right.
You don't want them to be young democratic socialists. Go talk to them.
Go talk to them.
Be reasonable. And I talked to them about health care and voluntary contracts. And every time I went to a BLM rally, I walked away with at least a dozen young kids who no longer wanted to call themselves socialists.
That is impressive stuff. And thank you for doing it. That is fantastic. And very creative, by the way.
That was dangerous. I almost got killed.
Killed? How's that happen?
Oh,
Somebody was mad at you for being there, or did you lip off? I would be shocked to hear that you lipped off, Tom.
I did not.
No.
Somebody calling themselves a volunteer for my campaign and wearing my shirt kind of picked a fight with a gentleman who weighed about 350 pounds and he was not fat.
I understand.
And he was black.
Yeah?
And at this particular rally, the All Lives Matter redneck crew showed up first and occupied part of the space and created a conflict. And so this guy...
Would have been a good day for them to stay home.
This guy, right? It's almost like separate protests are better than conflict protests because then nobody can kill each other.
Which has value.
Right? All life has value. So this gentleman, whom I won't name because I'd hate to see him get hurt by people who aren't going to like what has just happened.
Yeah.
He basically picked an argument with this guy, and the person's wearing my campaign shirt. And I'm the candidate.
I see where this goes.
And so I've got somebody who weighs 350 pounds, muscular, yelling, screaming, aggressive at me.
Yeah.
So I handled that situation a bit. He actually, he said, you should rip that Gadsden flag off the back of your wheelchair and
really
throw it away. That's what this joke, he was upset. He thought it was Republican. Because I'm in an area where people fly the blue line flag next to the Gadsden flag.
Yeah.
Saying that doesn't make sense, does it?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. We can cover that bridge.
That is fair. I'm not anti-cop, but I am anti-dirty cop, and I am anti-covering up for cops. And if you're a criminal, it doesn't matter if you're a cop, you're a criminal. And around here, if you know enough, it really means something.
Yeah. It does in a lot of places, Tom.
I know.
It does in a lot of places.
My uncle's in Florida. He carries a gun because of the cops.
I hear you.
So
Okay, so how does the campaign itself, how does the election go? How does the campaign go?
I want to get through this just a bit.
Okay.
So this gentleman's very upset with another gentleman who's on the anti-protest, right?
Yep.
And I offered to go with him to talk to him and be reasonable.
Good.
Didn't work. He grabbed the All Lives Matter picket sign out of the other guy's hand. It's a 2x4. This guy's 350 pounds. He grabs it and he circles and he whips and he threw that thing. It knocked over an 8-foot display table full of stuff.
Wow.
And that 2x4 went right here.
Wow.
And I have brittle bones. So
Yeah, that should have been a deadly experience.
I couldn't back up. There was literal women and children behind me.
Yeah.
And to me, that's near death. Because
Of course
if it
it
hit
is.
that, I'd be gone.
It's a very dangerous situation. Wow, I'm sorry that this happened.
I've been in worse, but
Well,
the interesting...
that doesn't make it any better.
You notice I have kind of a bad feeling about the cops around here. That protest was surrounded by the Chenango County Sheriffs. And,
Oh, really?
And the Norman's PD. They had cars.
And they were just tolerant of this display of violence, I hope not?
Not a thing happened.
Wow. Were they aware of it? You had to have been.
Very wide open.
Yeah, you couldn't miss it.
Yeah. Interestingly, my bodyguard, also disabled, spina bifida, wearing a piece legally.
Yeah.
He stopped violence on the other side of the crowd without touching anybody. He made the paper. Me almost dying because I'm the Libertarian candidate did not make the paper. But that's the paper around here.
That is the paper around here, and thanks for being a libertarian, Tom.
So the interesting thing about that, though, right? I mean, I had my own libertarian people telling me how horrible I am for going to these BLM rallies, and how dare you try to convince socialists not to be social. What? But this gentleman who whipped that picket sign,
Yeah.
he was with the most uppity crowd leaning towards the violent side of BLM, right?
Right.
And you know who was not invited back to any rally in this county again? That.
Yeah.
Because I went there, I took the risk,
Yeah.
I had the conversations, that happened, and they showed themselves for what they were, and the black people of this county told them not to come back.
Yeah. Well, that's how it works. That's something. That's an important story.
You know, so many people are afraid to approach the things they're against. And that's the opposite of what you need to do.
That's exactly right. That's well said. That's well said. Well, thank you for engaging. So, tell me how the rest of that year plays out. Tell me about the campaign.
Got on the ballot that spring, but before then, I had to fight my own party
Yeah.
here in New York to keep Claudia County off our line. We had a candidate, and by our rules, that means she can't get our line. Those people went so far as to file false documents with Albany to try and take the line. And because I was calling it out, because I wrote hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails to the executive and state committee,
Yeah.
the state party ended up filing suit and getting that knocked, and she did not get our line. And I am so glad for that, because
Wow.
she supported anti-sex work legislation that,
How dangerous is that?
well, she supported legislation that got prostitutes killed.
Yeah.
And I'm not in favor of prostitution. It's not something I like, but I'm definitely not in favor of making it easier to kill prostitutes.
Right. Right. We're not going to criminalize this.
It has to come down to human diet.
Yeah.
And what they actually made criminal was a voluntary market-based background check on jobs.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get it. This is a weird state, Tom. It's a weird state.
I like to say we don't have Republicans. We have Democrats and those who like
Want to
being
be
paid by Democrats.
Want to be Democrats? Yeah.
We have Democrats and those who like being paid by Democrats.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
And it's all one big party in a lot of ways.
There might be a few exceptions, but for the most part, we don't have true Republicans in New York.
You ran again 2 years later,
Yes.
but that took a twist.
It did.
Tell me about the twist.
So in 2020, I broke the state Senate level record in the state. And
You had like 12%?
I think it was closer to 13, something like
Something
that.
enormous. Yeah.
Numbers don't really matter to me. I don't have that kind of an ego to track my own success.
Well, I happen to have noticed it was an impressive figure. An impressive performance. Good for you.
And I have to owe that to the campaign manager I had.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing. He was active. He was also slightly disabled and killed himself for my campaign. Not literally, but I mean, you saw the pain on him.
Yeah. Knocked himself out.
We went hard 5 to 7 days a week, 12 to 20 hours a day. That's my cat creaking the door, by the way. And that meant I was out this door by 7.
Yeah.
Home by 9, and doing work before and after 5 to 7 days.
Yep.
I have never seen so much of this area of my life. So you have to understand that the personal reward to me was seeing all the towns that I knew about or only drove through, talking to all the people that I knew about but never met. And you get high off of that.
Yeah.
That's an excellent feeling.
Yeah, it is. I get that.
And, you know, it's interesting. We actually ended up helping people along the way. I can't resist when there's someone who had a botched spine caging done, turned out on the street in Broome County, living off a park bench. I'm going to pick up the phone and call somebody.
Yeah, that's right.
When I find, and this wasn't even in district, Chris, I think it was Gilderland, near Albany.
Mm-hmm.
So he had diabetes and a different disability and had to use a wheelchair.
Yep.
His other disability caused frequent infections. When you have diabetes and you have an infection, you have to test your blood sugar more often. And
I hear you.
the healthcare system's only allowed it in a normal 1 month supply. So this poor guy was going 1 to 2 weeks without testing his blood sugar.
Yeah.
That's potentially deadly.
Yeah.
That is a horrible situation.
Absolutely
to be in.
it is.
And he had taken a off-the-bush job answering phones for a convenience store to afford his own test strips.
Right.
Somebody turned him in. He almost lost his health care, where he lived,
Wow.
services.
Wow.
Yeah, you can thank the Clintons for that.
Wow.
They're the one that came down on welfare fraud.
Just when you thought you could trust humanity.
So I found a solution for him. The interesting thing here is these systems, the doctors, the social workers, and any other workers in this, they cannot keep up with the change in regulations. They do not know what they can offer.
No.
And so everybody was telling him that he couldn't get one of these little electric devices. It's a patch you put on your skin that reads to your phone or a similar device. And I knew it was covered.
Right.
But nobody that's actually in place to do the job did.
Yeah.
It took me 3 phone calls.
Good for you.
I sat on the phone with the guy 3 times. And then months later, you know, we're in the parking lot down in Boone County and my phone rings and it's him. Oh, what went wrong, right? Did I get him something that didn't work? I'm worried, right? I sit there for a minute. Finally, I answer. He's ecstatic.
Yeah.
He got it. It's working. It solved his problem.
Good for you.
Saved his life in his mind, right?
Yeah, right. Possibly quite literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Good for you. So tell me, I really want to hear, what is 2022 like? And tell me about that twist in the program.
2022, I was originally going to run for state senator again.
Yep.
The ballot access issue was an issue no matter what, because we're libertarians.
Yep. Always is.
But it was a redistricting year.
Okay.
And, you know, the more suspicious side of me says Democrats and Republicans got together and said that Tom Queter shouldn't have any more than like 2% of his base, the way the district laid out, right? Make him go all over everywhere else because it almost killed him last time. Let's do this again.
Right. Good strategy.
Right. So instead of state senate, I was very committed. I was fundraising. I was getting the paperwork together, getting ready to petition. And then that was also a U.S. Senate race year.
Yeah.
And certain people in the party, for months, very similar to how I ended up in the state Senate race in 2020, they were calling me and they're saying, you should probably try to do this. Can you please?
And this is a Chuck Schumer year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not my favorite person.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming.
Well, Democrats claim that their help that suppresses my freedom is helping, and Republicans say that, well, we hate welfare, but it's okay for you. And I say, it's okay to suppress my constitutional rights? I thought you were a Republican.
Right. Well, that's what a Republican is these days.
Right?
Yeah, that's what a Republican is these days.
So that's what they all are these days.
That's what they all are these days.
So I was being asked, and then I found out that a LaRouchian was courting the party with money to take that slot.
Not just a LaRouchian.
Diane Sarah.
The LaRouchian.
She was a fundraiser for the LaRouche party.
That's right.
And to meet her in person and talk to her, she's nice.
She's lovely.
You could probably tell us more about her than I'm willing to, because I'll get angry.
She's a communist.
Thank you. The State Libertarian Party of New York was almost going to have a communist on their ballot. That's what changed my mind. No. Just no. How do you even entertain that? I don't care any strategy you're looking at.
And this is only a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
This is only a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
This is not dark, deep history.
Right. Some of them still blame me for not attaining ballot access that year to the signature drive because I blocked the communist. I don't understand people sometimes. There's principles. There's where you can bend principles through consensus to a certain degree. There's pragmatism, and then there's communism.
Right. What? Communism is not a stepping stone to getting what we want. It's not a compromise to getting what we want. It's not a methodology for getting what we... All the reasons why you might back off of taking the biggest bite of principle you possibly could, right? Mm-hmm. Communism ain't one of those.
No. I mean, I don't know why she doesn't try for the Republican Party these days, to be honest with you. They're more on board with communism.
Maybe she will.
Right? I'm pretty sure she's courting ours again.
I saw her people in the parking lot yesterday. We were collecting signatures for ballot access in New York State, and so were her people.
Yep. I ran into them a lot in 22.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I feel about her volunteers are the way I feel about people who pick a football team.
Yeah.
Once they make that decision, they don't know any better. They don't want to know any better. Their feelings are involved. They just want to yell at the TV and throw a beer can. I mean, they just want to go out and petition for the team that they think is real.
It's fandom. It's fandom.
And money. She's got the money to pay people.
I have been impressed by her access to money.
That's what happens when you're a fundraiser.
And it may well be that that is what what certain people see in her is access to money.
Yeah,
I get that. I have heard that has raised its head inside of our party at the national level as well, with certain other candidates outside of our party who have been rumored to be able to bring money in, and that has turned some heads as well. But we're not going to discuss that either.
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about RFK either.
No, we don't need to talk about that. There's no value in discussing that, in my view. in my view. Do you know what I really want to talk to you about? You have a new project going on. And by new, I mean in the last, I want to say 3 years or so?
It started in, it's 24. I'm getting a full year 23. So technically, October of 22, we formed the board.
Okay, so just a couple of years.
Yeah.
Very recent.
It started out with me having a free trip to Miami and a really badly made business card.
Tell me. All right, I want to hear about that. Tell me the name of your foundation and what's the goal? What's the objective here? What are we doing?
We are going to free people who have the least ability to free themselves in the current situation. And part of that is because of some of the reaction from libertarians throughout all my campaigns. I've been told that I wouldn't survive without the state. I've been told that I shouldn't survive because we shouldn't have the state. And I'm like, the state's the biggest reason why survival has been so difficult. I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's people who haven't lived from my perspective, and they see me as some kind of welfare queen or I don't know.
Oh, my Lord.
The misconceptions. Like I said earlier, I'll come up with a group of friends who are very conservative and Republican, and they'll be railing against welfare, and they'll turn to me and say, oh, but it's okay for you.
Right. So this is the Mobility Independence Foundation.
Technically, ink. They make you put that ink on the end of the name.
But our brand is not going to include that ink. But it's the MIF, the Mobility Independence Foundation.
Yep.
And what are our stepping stones to success here? What does success look like? What are we doing?
Well, in my opinion, I've already had some success.
Tell us.
So I gave a guy a wheelchair. Boom, success. I'm sorry, but from my perspective, to give somebody what was originally a $65,000 wheelchair that really needs it, that's it could all fail right now, and I'll still be happy.
I hear that.
It's not going to. It's not going to.
Congratulations. That's a big deal.
So the purpose of the foundation is to create both open source hardware designs for mobility equipment. That takes it. That takes it away from the socialized healthcare system, doesn't it?
It does.
It's almost like knowledge is power. You create the knowledge, you share it.
Yes.
So we create those designs. They go out. If you have the ability or the network to actually go forth and create that design, you don't owe us anything. Take it. Go do it. Modify it. Change it. Make it yours. We saw this in software through the 90s. It's very simple concept, really.
Great. So open source development is a big theme behind this project.
Yes. Nothing will be... so as far as the individual using the technology, unrestricted.
Yes.
If you want to build our designs, though, just like the software from the 90s where you'd have to pay for it if you're using it for a business, you will have to lease those designs from the foundation to support our work.
Excellent. Love it.
And that lease may be a requirement to give away a certain number of, say, wheelchairs.
Yes.
Then there's another interesting thing. We lose a lot of technology as time goes on.
In what sense?
Well, the IP goes to the public domain, but the drawings in the documents aren't good enough to actually reproduce it. And so you have to have an example physically in front of you, reverse engineer it, and go forward from there.
I hear you.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. And that's why we're going to create wheelchairs that have a transmission from a wheelchair that had a transmission.
I love that. So who are you working with? Who are your partners in this?
Well, let's start with the board. Matthew Lacey out of Erie, Pennsylvania is our vice president and chief of research and design. He does not have a college degree.
Nice.
He has worked in maintenance and repair of things all of his life. Because he too grew up poor. Now he essentially manages and maintenance team for a 90-acre factory that builds locomotives. Which means if it's electrical or hydraulic or any kind of equipment, you can put it in front of him, he can dissect it, and you can make it work.
Right.
And we met through my online campaigning through 2020.
Yeah.
And then when I was looking to run for state senate again, he actually drove 5 hours to come to my campaign events.
Wow.
And we met physically.
Wow.
And not that actually, yeah, it was at that time I had a malfunction or a breakdown of the crowdfunded wheelchair that saved my life.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to look at it. So he scheduled time to come back.
Interesting.
Yeah, and meanwhile, I still had the other one that I was in that was failing.
Yeah.
I never really got a chance to try to get it up to snuff when I was out of it because I was running for state senate.
Yeah.
And so he was trying to repair joystick module on the crowdfunded chair.
Yeah.
That's got another whole long IP story, but essentially in contacting the company to try and get enough specifications to repair it ourselves, they told us that we should throw that $65,000 wheelchair away.
Wow.
Yeah, and
don't bother repairing it. So their attitude was don't bother repairing it.
Yeah, it's a foreign company, different IP laws, they hold it forever. They're never going to make that.
That is not an answer.
Yeah, they're never going to make that part again. They don't make it anymore.
They figured you're dead in the water.
They have a policy. That's it.
Yeah.
They have a policy for some legitimate reasons that crosses over into illegitimate reasons.
Right.
So it's interesting. There's nobody evil in there, but it's a mistake.
Yep.
So we ended up figuring out how to fix that, but not right away.
Yep.
So in the meantime, I've got this other chair. It's up on a workbench. It's torn apart. And after not having success with this, so he did figure out what was wrong with it, just not how to repair it.
Right.
He turns me. He's kind of a funny guy. He looks at me and he looks at that chair. And says, Can I play with that? And I said, sure.
Absolutely.
2 hours later, he drove it down off the workbench.
Wow.
And that's actually the one that I gave away to Devin Hamilton of Rapadapt, rapadapt.com, which is a machine shop that he started after graduating from the Rochester Institute of Technology for the sole purpose of helping people with disabilities because he himself has CP.
Yeah.
He has already created and patented 2 wheelchair designs that he can't bring to market. I'll give you a couple guesses why.
Oh, go ahead.
Corporate capture.
Yeah.
Corporate competition.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's in
someone who captured the IP.
No, they captured the market through regulatory oppression.
Oh, you couldn't break in through the insurance companies. The insurance companies were wed to what was already on the market.
Unless you're already rich, you can't do this.
Yeah, I get it.
So, which he hasn't given up. So if you're seeing this, Devin, don't give up. Now, the interesting thing is, the chair that we're starting with for harvesting IP is the Omega Track.
Yeah.
The Omega Track was built by aeronautics engineers that worked for the Air Force because one of their children was a quadriplegic.
Yep.
That family has largely passed away at this point, but Tom Jr. still works in San Antonio. I talked to him the other month. So when you build something that's meant for your own child, it's going to be quality, isn't it?
Done right.
So it has an oil bath transmission.
Yeah.
It's got 1 horsepower drive and 0.5 horsepower steer, which is quite a bit for a wheelchair. It's got an articulating frame.
Really?
So if I go over uneven ground, all 4 wheels to a point stay on ground.
Yeah, right.
It's very hard to lift up one of those back wheels because the frame articulates.
Yeah.
Because it has a differential drive transmission, it true tracks up the hill. Earlier, we walked out back and you saw me go up that hill. Interesting thing is that I could have gone up that hill at a 45-degree angle and gone in a straight line. Other wheelchairs that don't true track because they don't have a transmission will not do that.
It was a very impressive sight, you going up that hill. A very impressive sight.
That's I mean, to you,
what is the future of the foundation?
well, the future.
What's between here and even greater success?
Well, you have to create the designs. You
Yep.
have to show that example.
Yep.
Right? You have to create the tutorial, the language, the
Yep.
videos.
Yep. And that's the process you guys are in right now.
Yes. So beyond that, it's creating relationships.
Yep.
It's networking. It's talking to people. We have, I can't remember, there's a handful of partner organizations on our website, themif.org, themif.org. Click the About page, you'll see our board, you'll see our advisors, and almost all of them are on there. It's kind of hard to keep up. I actually have more engineers than I know where to place. When we talk about this online, every engineer that's in a dead-end job doing something that he doesn't appreciate says, hey, come on, I want to help.
Nice.
In fact, the robotics engineer in Massachusetts and the electrical engineer in Georgia, they only came on board because I said open source.
Yeah. Yeah. They know. They get it. They understand.
Are you familiar with Olivier Block?
No.
Okay. He worked for Microsoft for, I think, 17 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his own consulting business now. Have you heard of the term Internet of Things?
Yes, of course.
That's him.
Wow.
He has a podcast called IoT.
Nice.
But he is very hot on it, and he's actually given us ideas that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
Today in factories, they're installing sensors that can tell you preemptively when a piece of equipment is going to break down.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to a factory
It's a
when a
big
piece
deal.
of equipment breaks
The
down?
whole factory can be damaged.
The whole factory can stop.
Yeah, right.
Same thing in a wheelchair.
Yep,
One part goes, whole thing stops.
right.
So if you have a week or two lead time,
And if you depend on that and it's your only vehicle, it's a big deal.
yes. So we can install sensors that will predict breakdowns and
Wow.
tell you ahead of time, and
Wow.
you're likely never stranded, or at least reducing that time.
Yeah, so important.
Ah.
So exciting. So, at themif.org, people can make contributions.
There is a donation button if you are yourself a user of equipment and have complaints, or maybe there's just things you want to do that you haven't been able to do with your equipment. Tell us. Fill out that form. Fill out that survey. If you want to skydive off of Mount Everest, we want to hear it. If you're like me and you want to drive through a wall that's on fire or go out to the desert and strap rockets to it, tell us. If you are angry at somebody,
So you can design equipment to help do that?
I mean, we shouldn't, but I'm gonna.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
so here's the thing.
But you're in the business of collecting dreams.
I am in the business of pursuing what I want to do.
Yeah.
So there is a dichotomy when dealing with people with disabilities where I don't want to insult people with disabilities. I try not to, but I absolutely feel that society coddles us. It prevents us from doing. It prevents us from exploring and learning. And the most important thing, particularly for children, is to explore and learn. It was my grandfather that told me, the minute you stop learning is the same minute you start dying. And if you can't get out in the world, if you can't go down the side of the road, if you can't go to the shops, if you can't go to family picnics, so many of us choose not to go to family events because we see the struggle and the trouble that our family goes through to get us there. We understand that sometimes if it's in a park or something, once we're there, we're going to be miserable, and that's not going to be good for anybody. And so we end up choosing to sit home alone.
Because the park can be a difficult thing to navigate.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can hurt. We got a response from a gentleman in the UK. His wife had had a car accident. That's another important point. Anybody watching this can become disabled.
Absolutely.
The worst disabilities are those that hit you midlife. You're in your prime and all of a sudden you can't do. There's so much psychology there that it is
I hear.
worse than my situation. I had over 1,000 fractures by the time I was 16, but I can tell you that somebody who's 30 years old and loses the ability to walk, it's a harder time.
I get that. I hear you.
So
Interesting, you should recognize that.
I've advocated for too many people not to.
Yeah.
You see enough people die, and you learn.
Yeah.
You deal with enough veterans, and you learn. That's the other thing. After we started the foundation, we found statistics coming out. 50% of all wheelchairs in this country, power or not, break down in any given 6-month period.
Wow.
Until you reduce that demographic to just veterans. Then it's 88%. You know why?
They're government issued.
No. What do we train the military to do? To go forth and do. That mentality does not go away just because you lose the use of your legs.
Right.
They're going to take their machine, no matter what it is, and they're going to keep going, and they're going to keep doing, and if your machine is not up to snuff, it's going to break. Of course, then there's the homeless aspect, right? A lot of our veterans do end up homeless.
Yeah.
And that makes it harder to keep a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember in Boston, they had the police taking wheelchairs away from homeless veterans and throwing them in the trash compacting garbage trucks.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing.
It's bad enough that we try to stop people from feeding the homeless, but taking their wheelchairs away? Oh, but they're faking it, right? They're all faking it. Just take all the wheelchairs. Every last one of them's a panhandler. To hell with them. I can't stand that mentality.
I can't stand that mentality.
You know, if 9 out of 10 of them are panhandling, I don't care. I don't care. You don't take wheelchairs away from people.
The basics. The basics. This shouldn't be hard.
So then we have the situation of what it takes to get a wheelchair, and I'm not going to lie to you. This comes out of my own personal experience, indeed, and where we're starting is because of my own personal experience, indeed, as well as Devin's and Andrew Wyant. We're all lovers of the Omega Track.
Yeah.
We've all had them. We've all experienced the freedom and what it can do.
Yeah. Life changing.
It is. I got my first Omega Track when I was 15 years old. The second I set wheel in a high school hallway again, I recognized the difference. I was no longer the scared little bullied kid. I was no longer pushed around. Everybody was afraid of running into me, not shoving me into a wall.
Yeah, I get you.
I mean, high school kids, come on, I get it. And all kids.
Yeah.
I like that. But at the same time, we all understand that body language matters.
Yeah.
Your wheelchair is a part of your body language.
Well said.
It's a part of your body.
Yeah.
I've been in a wheelchair so long, and if you touch that back wheel, I know it. And if you push me around, I'm going to break your leg.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
I never had the ability to. And kids gotta fight, right?
Yeah.
I mean, taking a punch and throwing a punch, that's something you learn somewhere between kindergarten and 12th grade, right?
Yes, you do.
And that wasn't something I could partake in.
Right.
And so that puts me at the bottom of the totem pole.
I hear you.
And not all of the bullying, but the extreme bullying, that which we would all, no matter what we think of it, would say is wrong.
Yep.
Stopped. Dead stopped.
Amazing.
Getting through doors that were heavy was no longer an issue.
Wow. In so many ways that it would be difficult for someone else to think of, to appreciate.
Yep. I know what it's like to wait 12 hours for a glass of water despite having a handful of people around you that love you and care about you.
Right.
Your economic situation is dragged down. Their economic situation is dragged down. Everybody's got to work. Everybody's got to do things. And it's just not always there for you.
Yeah.
That's why independence is important. And I want to go back to my physical therapist when I was a kid. They said, find your independence. Very firmly, very loudly, not like screaming, but directly.
Yep.
And then, or else you'll end up in an institution.
Yeah.
Because institutions
it matters that much.
And those institutions are tough.
To your health in every way, in every aspect of your health.
Well, and the reality is, any room you can't leave is
A prison.
yes, and it doesn't matter how many iPhones, computers, cable TV channels, streaming,
It's not the
video
same
games.
thing.
It's still a prison if you can't leave.
Yeah.
And the human mentality is a social mentality.
Yeah.
We need people,
Yeah.
and we need more
And that
than
includes seeing people firsthand.
and that includes more than just our closest caregivers and loved ones.
Yeah.
That includes a stranger on the street.
Being involved with society.
As libertarians, we believe in the freedom of travel. A lot of us don't really like borders, at least most of them, right?
Yeah.
What if that border was your doorway and you weren't allowed to cross it?
Right. It's because you couldn't.
Right. Well, it's not that I couldn't. It's that our systems and the industry doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
For freedom to flourish, we must allow technology to flourish. And it doesn't have to be. We're not talking a space odyssey, you know, it's not HAL 9000.
Right.
But when you look at what they're doing with wheelchairs, and you really look at it, you don't just look at that picture on the advertisement, you take the thing apart, you understand
Yeah.
the technology, and then you look at everything else around you, you'll be appalled. Technology is, we put a robot on Mars that lasted for 14 years, and our wheelchairs are breaking down on an average of every 3 years. Done. Dead. To the dump.
Right.
And they're breaking down every 6 months.
It makes no sense.
It makes perfect sense if you're not exercising ethics in your business model.
And sustainability of that product and recognizing the role that it plays in your customer's life.
It's a forced market. As libertarians, we need to be against forced markets. We need to be against forced insurance. We need to be against forced provision.
That's where these problems come from.
Well, but we have to listen to the FDA. They know all of the safety standards for wheelchairs. They're the ones that tell us that Pop-Tarts are a healthy part of breakfast and avocados will kill you. And they're the ones that deny you life-saving drugs.
Thank you for developing the avocado Pop-Tart.
Right?
That's what you're doing here, and I recognize that.
No, I can't take credit for that. There's actually recipes for that online.
Tom Queter, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Not just for our party, but for a lot of people outside of our party. Thank you.
All wheelchairs should have at least a 30-year lifespan. They should be upgradable, they should be customizable, and they should be repairable.
From your lips to corporate ears.
See you later.